The Zorvan warship descended through the clouds like a metal god falling from heaven. Commander Threx stood at the observation deck and watched the primitive settlement below. Small stone buildings clustered together near a river. Wooden fences surrounded patches of green crops. Tiny figures moved between the structures, like insects going about their meaningless lives. "Scan complete, Commander," reported his tactical officer. "Population approximately 2,000. Technology level is primitive. They use animal power for farming. Their weapons appear to be sharpened metal and wooden projectile launchers." Thrax allowed himself a thin smile. His blue skin stretched tight across his angular face. The Zorvan Empire had conquered 17 worlds in the past decade. Each conquest followed the same pattern. They would land near a settlement, demonstrate their superior firepower, and watch the natives surrender in terror. Some species fought back initially, but none could stand against plasma rifles and energy shields. "Prepare the landing party," Threx commanded. "Standard intimidation protocol. We take this settlement by nightfall and establish a forward base." The dropships launched from the warship's belly. 50 Zorvan warriors descended toward the planet's surface. Each warrior stood 7 feet tall with blue skin that could withstand extreme temperatures. Their plasma rifles could burn through stone walls. Their energy shields could stop any projectile these primitives might throw at them. The villagers noticed the approaching ships. Threx watched through his magnification screen as they pointed at the sky and began running. Some grabbed children and fled toward the surrounding forests. Others disappeared into their stone buildings. A few stood frozen in place, staring upward with expressions of pure terror. "They scatter like frightened mice," laughed Lieutenant Vorn. "This will be easier than the Kalari subjugation." The dropships landed in the open field outside the village gates. Zorvan warriors poured out in perfect formation. Their blue armor gleamed in the afternoon sun. They marched toward the village with weapons raised, expecting the gates to open and surrender at any moment. The gates remained closed. Threx frowned from his observation deck. This was unusual. Most primitive species opened their defenses immediately when faced with overwhelming force. Perhaps these creatures were simply too stupid to understand the situation. "Burn down the gates," he ordered through his communication device. 3 warriors stepped forward and aimed their plasma rifles. Brilliant orange beams struck the wooden gates. The ancient timber exploded into flames and collapsed inward. Smoke billowed across the village entrance. The Zorvan warriors marched through the burning gateway. They expected to find cowering villagers begging for mercy. Instead, they found empty streets. Every building appeared abandoned. The settlement seemed like a ghost town. "Search the buildings," ordered the ground commander. "Find the natives and bring them to the central square." Warriors broke into smaller groups and began kicking down doors. They found half-eaten meals on tables. They found toys scattered across floors. They found beds still warm from recent occupation, but they found no people. "They must be hiding in underground shelters," suggested one warrior. "These primitives often dig holes to escape predators." The ground commander activated his scanning equipment. The device could detect life signs through solid rock. He swept the area systematically, expecting to find hundreds of terrified natives huddled beneath the ground. The scanner showed nothing. "That is impossible," he muttered. 2,000 beings cannot simply vanish. From the warship above, Threx watched the growing confusion among his troops. Something was wrong. He had conquered dozens of primitive settlements and had never experienced anything like this. The natives always fought or surrendered. They never simply disappeared. "Commander," called his sensor officer, "I am detecting unusual readings from the forest surrounding the village." "What kind of readings?" "I am not certain. The sensors are showing interference patterns I have never encountered before." Threx felt the first touch of unease. The Zorvan Empire prided itself on superior technology. Their sensors could detect the heartbeat from orbit. Nothing should be able to create interference. Pull the ground forces back to the dropships, he ordered. Something about this situation feels wrong. Before the order could be transmitted, the attack began. The first wave came from the forests. Figures emerged from the tree line with impossible speed. They wore no visible armor, just simple cloth garments in greens and browns. They carried what appeared to be primitive projectile weapons. The Zorvan warriors raised their plasma rifles with practiced confidence. Their energy shields hummed to life. No primitive projectile could penetrate their defenses. The first shot struck. Warriors expected the impacts to bounce harmlessly away. Instead, the projectiles punched through their shields like they did not exist. Blue blood sprayed across the village streets. Warriors collapsed with expressions of pure shock on their faces. "Return fire!" screamed the ground commander. Plasma beams streaked toward the attackers. The orange energy should have burned through flesh and bone instantly. Instead, the beams seemed to bend around the running figures and strike empty ground behind them. "What is happening?" shouted a panicked warrior. "Our weapons are not working." More attackers emerged from the buildings themselves. They had been hiding in places the scanners could not detect. They moved with coordination that spoke of careful planning and extensive training. They targeted officers first, then heavy weapons specialists, then communications personnel. The Zorvan formation collapsed within minutes. Warriors who had conquered worlds found themselves outmaneuvered by beings they had dismissed as primitive farmers. The attackers fought with a ferocity that bordered on terrifying. They showed no fear of plasma weapons. They showed no hesitation in close combat. They fought like predators who had been waiting for this moment their entire lives. From the warship, Threx watched his elite warriors dying on the ground below. He could not understand what was happening. The natives should have been easy prey. They should have surrendered at the first display of power. "Launch reinforcements," he ordered desperately. "Send every warrior we have." "Commander, the reinforcement dropships are not responding to launch commands. Something is interfering with our systems." The warship shuddered. Warning lights flashed across every console. A deafening alarm echoed through the corridors. "We are being boarded," shouted the security officer. "Multiple breaches on the lower decks. I do not understand how they reached us. We are 5 kilometers above the surface." Threx drew his personal weapon. Around him, officers did the same. The bridge doors sealed automatically, security protocols activated. The sealed doors lasted approximately 30 seconds. They did not explode or melt. They simply opened, despite being locked with the most advanced security systems the Zorvan Empire possessed. Figures stepped through the doorway. They looked like the villagers below, but their eyes held something ancient and knowing. "Commander Threx of the Zorvan Empire," said the lead figure in perfect Zorvan language. "Your ship entered Earth space without permission. Your forces attacked a human settlement without provocation. Your empire has been judged." Threx aimed his weapon at the speaker. "You are primitives. Your technology is centuries behind ours." The human smiled. It was not a pleasant expression. "We have been waiting for species like yours for a very long time, Commander. The villages you saw were not hiding places for frightened farmers. They were traps. Every settlement on this planet is a trap. That is impossible. Our scans showed primitive technology. No advanced power sources. No manufacturing capability. Your scans showed what we wanted them to show. Humans learned long ago that the most dangerous predator is the one that appears harmless. We perfected that lesson over thousands of years of conflict among ourselves. When we finally reached the stars, we decided to keep that advantage. Other humans spread across the bridge. They disabled consoles with touches that should not have been possible. They collected weapons from surrendering officers with practiced efficiency. They moved like soldiers who had trained for this exact scenario. "How many worlds has your empire conquered?" asked the lead human. Threx felt his confidence crumbling. 17. 17 species enslaved. 17 civilizations destroyed or subjugated. The Zorvan Empire expanded because no one could stop you. No one had the technology or the willingness to fight back with sufficient force. The human stepped closer. His eyes reflected lights that did not exist in the physical world. Humans are different, Commander. We invented war before we invented agriculture. We perfected violence before we perfected peace. Every advance our species ever made came from conflict. We did not climb to the top of our food chain through kindness. We climbed there by being the most adaptable, most persistent, and most creative killers our planet ever produced. Threx felt real fear for the first time in his military career. What do you want? Justice. The 17 species you conquered will be freed. The Zorvan Empire will face consequences for its crimes. And the galaxy will learn a valuable lesson about making assumptions based on appearances. You cannot defeat our entire empire with one planet. The human turned to look out the observation window. Below, the village was quiet again. The battle had ended. Zorvan warriors knelt in the central square with their hands behind their heads. Human fighters walked among them, securing prisoners with calm professionalism. Commander, that village was protected by approximately 200 humans. Your 50 elite warriors lasted less than 10 minutes. Earth has 8 billion humans. Our military forces number in the tens of millions. Every one of them has trained their entire lives for exactly this kind of conflict. The human looked back at Threx with an expression that mixed pity with cold determination. We build weapons you cannot imagine. We develop tactics your military academies will study for centuries. We created defenses that make your shields look like paper. And we did all of this while pretending to be primitive farmers living in stone houses. Threx dropped his weapon. The metal clattered against the deck. Around him, his officers did the same. There was no point in fighting. There had never been any point in fighting. The Zorvan Empire came to Earth expecting to find frightened mice, said the human. You found something very different. You found a species that has been preparing for visitors like you since before we could write. You found humans. The warship began its descent. Human pilots had already taken control of the navigation systems. Below, more human forces gathered to receive the prisoners. They did not celebrate or cheer. They simply prepared for the next phase of the operation. The liberation of 17 worlds would begin tomorrow. Commander Threx sat in silence as his empire's flags were lowered and replaced with symbols he did not recognize. He had come to Earth expecting an easy conquest. He had found humanity instead. The universe would never make that mistake again.